afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 48. Can you believe it? Of the Renny Show. Wow. Glorious sunshine outside, although, as usual, you know, if you've been listening for a while, you know that Jenny and I are honest to a fault. So when we are pre-recording, because we have other places to be when we're due to be live, then we do have to pre-record, and that is the case today. We're pre-recording the day before. However, as always, it will still be live and unedited. Take us as you find us. We'll see what happens. So the live brilliance will still be there. So hello, Jenny, how are you?
Good afternoon, good whatever day it is, whatever time it is.
It's the 30th by the time they're listening. Yeah,
it is the 30th ish. It will be the 30th. Do you know, I'm always, whatever I'm doing and however hard my day is, when I get to do this, it's just joyous, isn't it? Yes. So I am feeling particularly joyous, and the sun is shining and the temperature is warm. I've got no cardigan on. I'm very excited. And it's that just the joy of all the trees are green. It's just wonderful. So that's a very long-winded way of saying I'm peachy. Thank you very much, Rach. How are you?
Awesome. I'm really good, thank you. Also really enjoying the fact that there is sunshine and blue sky outside. It's absolutely wonderful to see that we're having a nice run of sunshine. And again, you know, I've got bare arms. Woo! No jumper, no cardigan. It's rather nice. So enjoying the nice weather, and all is well here. Busy, but in a good way. So all is well here. So I guess it's time to get on with our questions then. So because I often ask the question first, so how about you ask the first question today, Jenny?
Well, because we've just had Easter, and it seems to me that the Easter holidays have been quite protracted, so in different counties, so it feels like people have been on holiday for a long time. So my first question is one of our lovely random ones, which is, where's your favourite holiday destination? If you could choose anywhere to go, where would you go? Where's your favorite holiday destination?
Interesting. Oh gosh, I mean, the first thing I want to say is that there are so many places that I still haven't been. So I know that there will be lots of wonderful places to visit, so I'm looking forward to your recommendations too. And if anyone listening has got any fabulous recommendations, then let us know, because it might get added to the bucket list. I absolutely love Italy. We've been on a number of city breaks, Darren and I, to places like Verona, Rome, Venice, and each time we have just had the most wonderful time. You know, love the scenery, love the cuisine, just love everything about the way life is in Italy. I mean, you know, there's various other places we've been that I really liked, Easter Island being one of them. That just kind of felt so peaceful and calm and lovely. But Italy is definitely one of my top destinations, and there are so many places in Italy that I haven't yet discovered. So if anyone's got any particular recommendations about where to go in Italy that I haven't been, because there's just so many nice places in Italy, isn't there? So that's definitely right up there. Could be the favourite so far. What about you?
Italy is so beautiful, isn't it? I love a city break. I love city breaks, but I also love. It's funny, isn't it? Because I love the beach. I love the beach. I'm not a huge fan of swimming in the sea, which is a weird thing. I like to paddle and plodge out, particularly if it's nice and warm, the water.
Of course.
But I am a great fan of a palm tree. So I love beaches. I love palm trees. I think one of the most fabulous places that I ever went on holidays so far, because like you, there are so many places in the world, was at Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. And my memory of it is it's not particularly it was just unspoiled, so just huge beaches and palm trees and quite empty. And so I do love a beach destination. The Amalfi Coast, I'm quite partial to that. I love the south France. I love lots of places in France. And I think one of the joys, isn't it, of being so connected with the world these days is that you can go to lots of places. My favoritist holiday destination so far was also India. That's really high on my list of fabulousness. So I did really love India when I went in last February. So the temperature was great. But I love a bit of sunshine. So I love the heat and the sunshine. Low humidity, high sunshine. And I'm on it. High humidity, not so much.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'd have to agree there. And I love a bit of sunshine and beaches. I mean, sea air. I was brought up by the sea in Portsmouth, and the sea air, it can solve all ills. It's absolutely brilliant. So anywhere where there's sea, I'm definitely seaside. I'm a very, very happy person. But equally love the snow as well. We've not been for a while, but skiing is something we've done a lot of as a family. So I don't mind the cold as well. I guess you.
And when the weather's like this in the UK, there are so many beautiful places to see in the UK, aren't there? So many beautiful places, and I often think that we underestimate how beautiful. I'm going to go to Whitby,
lovely.
I love Whitby. In July, I hope. So there are fabulous places. So if anybody listening wants to let us know your favourite British holiday destination, that would be great too. There are some wonderful. I went to school in the Lake District, so the Lake District at this time of year is absolutely magnificent, with the rhododendrons and the acers and all the spring, and of course lots of water. So although it's not the seaside, there's lots of water about, and there's something very calming, isn't there, soothing about being near water.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you can't beat being near water. It's just brilliant. Fabulous. Well, so let us know, folks, if you've got other things you want to say about your favourite destinations. So my first question is, I'm asking this because earlier today I was reading a post on LinkedIn by the lovely Kathy Rice Oxley. So look her up if you're not connected with her. She was posting about the fact some of the work she was doing as a 40s singer, in sort of army uniform. But she's a voice coach. So she helps people to, the business is Voice Confident. She helps people to be confident at presenting and all the rest of it. And this question is off the back of a story she told about someone who'd been in the audience who had looked thoroughly bored when she was giving an hour-long performance of these 1940s wartime songs. So without making the question too loaded and giving you what was said in the story, what do you do if an audience member looks really bored during a workshop or talk? Do you do anything? Over to you.
Oh, that's a sharp one for the first. I think so. I think it depends. I think it depends on the size of the workshop.
Yes.
I think also for me, if somebody, I would always have a conversation with that person. So it's harder to hide, isn't it? It's harder to hide in a smaller workshop. It's but I think if I'm facilitating a workshop or giving a talk, unless you're, if you're somebody like, I don't know, John Bishop, and you're talking to hundreds of thousands of people, maybe it's different. I once went to a Victoria Wood concert, and the person, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, but the person who sat next to me, who obviously I didn't know, never moved a muscle.
Really?
Their face didn't crack, their body, nothing, just and actually, as somebody who was crying with laughter and had really tummy muscles, I found it quite off-putting to have somebody who was sitting there not engaged on any level.
Yeah.
So I think if I was facilitating a workshop, which was the original question, then I would ask the question. I would have a conversation, not in front of the group, but just quietly on the side, having a conversation to say, is there anything I can do to make this more enjoyable for you? I usually start off my workshops asking people what they would need, because I'm very mindful that people give up their time and their energy to come to things. Sometimes they've been sent,
of course,
which is a whole different conversation. So normally at the beginning of my workshops, I would ask people what they need from me in order to make this, the time that we're spending together, really a good use of their time. So I've usually got an idea, but if somebody was I'd lost them in the process of the workshop, then I would have a conversation with them if I could, without calling them out, without making them feel more uncomfortable, just asking, because my genuine desire is for the time that they spend with me to be useful and productive and helpful, and for them to learn something. So if it's not their kind of thing, and I've missed it in some way, shape or form, then I would make a genuine concerted effort to find out what was going on for them, and to see if I could do anything to alleviate that. I think when you're doing with your lady, I think if you're doing it in a big audience like the person who was sitting next to me, it might be that they've come along to out of kindness to accompany somebody else, and it's not their thing. In which case you just have to thank them for being there, don't you? Because they did go, even if it's not their thing. But it is, I think it can be quite off-putting. And also, which is slightly random, is I was at the theatre just recently, and the people who were sitting next to me at the theatre talked. We went to see Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club. Wonderful. Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant performance, wonderful. And these two people next to me talked the whole way through. So my question to them would have been, the people behind asked them to be quiet, but it's, why would you go to the theatre? They're expensive tickets. Why would you then go to the theatre and then treat it like your sitting room and talk all the way through? Yeah. And they weren't talking about the show either. They were talking about things they could have talked about at home. It's bizarre. So I think that people's audiences are as varied as the shows or the workshops or the talks. So sometimes it's not possible to understand why, but if there's an opportunity for me to understand why somebody I'm working with is bored or disengaged, I'd have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose to kind of round that off and finish.
Yes. Tell me what happened. Tell me the story.
Really, really interesting. So the scenario had been in a care home. That's why she was performing 1940s music, because of the age of the people. And for this hour-long performance, the lady looked very bored, very disengaged, like she wasn't interested at all. And the long and the short of it was that she approached Kathy afterwards, who was obviously, oh goodness, what's she going to say? And she got very, very emotional and started telling Kathy how much she'd enjoyed it and how it had brought back so many memories, so many family memories, some really important stories for them as a family, and thanking Kathy profusely for the performance. And I just found that really, really fascinating, because I have had, similar things where someone at a talk might look really disengaged. They just don't, I mean, you almost want to call it resting what's it face, without wanting to swear. Because sometimes people just look bored, or they just look very flat in terms of emotion. There's nothing, whereas I think me generally, quite often when I'm listening to a talk, I'm quite often the person the speaker will look at, because I do engage facially with what's going on. But yeah, I delivered a workshop, and someone had looked it was an hour-long session, so there was no break in which to sort of check in with them and see if they were actually okay. And actually, they were one of the first people to come up at the end and say how much they'd enjoyed it, and started talking to me about related things. And so when I saw this post that Kathy had put on, I was like, well, I've had a very similar experience. And it just shows that you can't always judge whether someone is actually bored. They might not be. It might just be that that's how they are in terms of reacting, i.e. they don't react. And so, you worry as the speaker, oh my goodness, am I not doing enough to engage this person? What could I do better? What could I do different? Like you've said, to give them what they need. But sometimes you don't need to, because actually they're very engaged. They just don't look it, So I think the message of, I guess, not judging the book by its cover, to think that actually maybe they might be engaged and it might not be the problem that you think it is. And I suppose the message behind that is that we can maybe sometimes send ourselves a little bit loopy with worry about whether someone's engaged or not. And actually, it could be that it's absolutely nothing to worry about and they're having the most wonderful time. They're just not, they just haven't told their face, So yeah, I found that really.
And sometimes when we feel things really strongly inside, I mean, if I'm feeling something really strong inside, unfortunately, my face.
My face just leaks. Yeah.
Yes, leaks. But yes, it's a great story. And it, as ever, I'm only laughing because it kind of links, funnily enough, to my next question.
Oh my goodness.
So I did a post yesterday, a little random short post yesterday on the Book of Faith, to ask. So I was at the hairdresser's yesterday having my hair cut. So there is a lot less of it than there was yesterday morning.
Yeah.
And one of the other ladies who was in the hairdressers said to me, "Oh, I just love the colour of your hair. It's so fabulous. Where does Fab?" My hairdresser is called Fab. Isn't that just a wonderful name?
Brilliant.
So she, does she highlight it for you? And I went, no, this is nature. This is all nature. And she said, I really wanted to stop dyeing my hair for so many years, but many of my friends have told me that they think it wouldn't suit me, and so I have stopped myself doing it. Because of what my friends said. So we had a great conversation about how could your friends possibly know what you would look like if you have never been there. They're making all sorts of assumptions, and so we had a great conversation. And by the end of when I left, she said, I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I said, well, what's the worst that can happen? If you hate it, you can dye it back again. But I hope you do it, because I think you would look amazing. And, nature has a way of working with your skin and nature knows what color your hair needs to be naturally. So it will suit you, whatever color it, whatever shade or multiple shades of gray it will be, it will suit you. So my question is, what holds you back from doing things that you really want to do?
Interesting. Okay, so I mean, I'll start with hair, because that's the story that you've told, and is quite topical, because I have just booked myself in for my next hair appointment to have my colours done. And for anyone that can see, you can see I've got an amount of grey showing through at the roots, and I have considered the option: do I just go au naturel and grow it all out and see? And at the moment, and I think, is there some crossover with other things in my life as well? Maybe, not sure. At the moment, I am going to stick with still going to the hairdresser and having some colours put in, but I do feel that there's going to come a point where I will say, well, do you know what? I'm just going to give it a go. I'm not against the idea. I'm not doing it because I'm scared of not doing it. I'm not doing it. It's going to sound quite petulant because I just don't want to at the moment. But equally, you know, I haven't had my hair coloured for months and I've got all this grey showing through, and it doesn't really bother me. It's there. It's part of who I am. It's fine. You know, I love myself enough that it doesn't matter if I've got a whole bunch of grey showing through. Whereas I know there's a lot of people out there that would be, oh, cover it up, and, you know, get it sorted out. And so I do think that's a very interesting one for people who do. I mean, it's quite often the women that are getting their hair coloured, but it applies just as much to men who get their hair coloured to cover the grey. And there's something in there about not wanting the aging process to happen, I guess, in a way. And the aging process is a privilege. You know, the fact that we're here and able to age and still going strong is absolutely wonderful. So it's something to be celebrated. But I think there is a message in society about, you know, not aging, hence why there are so many people that get their hair coloured. And, you know, don't even get me started on all of the treatments you can have to, you know, reverse the aging process and all of those things, which, you know, that's not my bag, but each to their own. So yeah, I think for a lot of people it's about fear, and, you know, I'd put myself in that category too. There are definitely things that I've held back from doing in my life because fear, you know, fear of the consequence, fear of what people will say, fear of being judged. You know, that's, I think, such a common one for people, isn't it? And you know, fear. One of the things that comes to mind is roller coasters, which for a long time, certain roller coasters I wouldn't go near. I just said flat no, and it was very much fear. You know, it wasn't that I was frightened that my life was in danger. I was frightened of the way it would make me feel because I'd had a bad experience back when I was about 21, 22. And what I realised is that fear was holding me back from doing things with my family, from sharing experiences that are precious time, like, you know, precious time with the kids. Why would I want to hold myself back from that? And so, you know, it wasn't quite as simple as just saying, stuff it, I'm going to do it anyway. You know, there was a journey that came with that, and, you know, I had to work through the fear and learn to embrace it and do it anyway. But the empowered feeling when you do then embrace the fear and do it anyway is incredible. And I think the same can apply to anything that we are holding back from doing because of fear. If you actually let yourself do that thing, whatever it happens to be, chances are you're going to feel so empowered once you've done it, because it's, you know, it's not that we're eradicating fear. Fear is useful. You know, fear is partly what keeps us alive. So to use that fear to your own advantage rather than to let it rule you is massively empowering. So yeah, fear's, I guess the message is, fear is the big thing that potentially holds me and many people back from doing things. But it's how you choose to deal with that fear, you know. And I've still got fears to deal with at the moment. I've got no intention of jumping out of an airplane, doing a bungee jump. You know, those things just.
Those are choices, though, aren't they? That
Yeah.
they're not, you know, they're not things that they're. I was going to say extreme. I don't mean that, but they are quite. They're choices that you wouldn't necessarily come across in everyday life.
Yes.
Whereas, whereas choices about whether you dye your hair or not is a slightly more mundane choice. But it was interesting for me that it was the as you said, the judgment or the assumption that other people know better than you about how you may or may not look when your hair is a different color. And some of it is about what they're used to, isn't it? So people are used to seeing people in a particular way, and it can take some getting used to. And I think so often it's like when people, I might open a hornet's nest here, but sometimes when people have lost a lot of weight, and people go, oh, you look really thin, you look a bit haggard, and it's like, actually that's an opinion that you could probably keep to yourself. That you don't necessarily need to share, but that amazing capacity that we have as humans, either to support or not somebody's decision. And I say, I really hope that the lady in question, she was such a lovely lady, and I really hope she, when I left, she was saying, do you know what? I'm going to have more confidence in myself, and actually, I'm going to, and again, we've talked before, haven't we, about the energy that goes into that when you do something that really matters to you, and it doesn't, when you're confident about what you've done. And why you've done it and why you've made that decision, and actually what other people think matters less, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Be interesting if people have a different point of view. I'd love it. We would love it. If you wanted to comment about your experience of changing something, about it might be that you've had to start wearing glasses. It might be there are so many things, aren't there, about our appearance where people feel that they have the right to venture their opinion, and it is just that. It is just an opinion. Other opinions exist.
They do. We'd all do well to remember that.
Well, yes.
Oh, brilliant. Love it. Okay. So my next question to you, and this is another one that's a bit topical for me at the moment, which will become apparent, but is accountability important to you in your business? And if so, how important is it?
Oh, well, there's levels of accountability, isn't there? So I suppose for me, since you asked, is there is the level of accountability where you you deliver what you say you're going to deliver. So if you have said to a client, I will do X by Y, then given that sometimes life throws you curveballs and you might not be able to do that, but I'm a great supporter of under promising and over delivering, rather than the other way around. So I think there's the customer. There's the customer experience kind of accountability, and then there's also the accountability to yourself about how you run the different component parts of your business, and what you stand for. And for me, it comes down to, I think accountability is part of your value, or part of my values. So for me, it's the way that my values in my life and in my business are the same. There's no difference in them. So the way I live my life and the way I run my business are aligned, and the accountability comes into my kind of genuine, with a J, of course, that genuine, 100% genuine. So actually what you see is what you get, and that the way I do anything is the way I do everything. So that holding yourself accountable for being authentic and being kind, being compassionate, being supportive, all of those things that matter to me in business, making sure that I do the best job that I can possibly do is really important to me. So yes, that's what accountability means to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thoroughly agree. And I think the other thing I'd add on to that is that accountability through things like coaching, or through things like buddying up with people, other people in business, which is something that's proven to be quite important to me. So I've recently buddied up with a couple of people in terms of keeping each other accountable. You know, at the end of the day, you have to do, you're responsible for, you know, being accountable to yourself for delivering exactly as you've described the things that you say you're going to do, and that's on you if you don't do that. But having, you know, safe places or safe people, I suppose, where you can help each other be accountable and say, right, you know, this week I'm going to achieve this, 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 and this, and then at the end of the week coming back together again and saying, okay, how far did you get? You know, and those conversations can help to motivate you. I mean, you've got to have motivation anyway to want to do the things, but knowing that someone's going to be asking the question is, you know, like your homework is going to be checked, you know, so you've got to get it done in time to hand it into teacher, kind of thing, you know, which, you know, I think that's very relevant for me at the moment with school age children. But yeah, I think the support that we can give to each other in terms of accountability is really important as well. And I think something else that's really come up for me lately in terms of accountability is, you know, without wishing to get too political, but with the Supreme Court ruling and the varying different opinions that are out there about the impacts on, you know, marginalized communities and on women in general. You know, there's lots of different schools of thought, and something that has really helped me, you know, I'm still processing, but something that's really helped me through that is the ability, you know, to have accountability by talking to other people about it, and, you know, people calling out things that you know, opinions that, you know, they might not agree with, and that's fine, but encouraging then discourse about it, and, you know, the conversations that really need to happen, and being open to seeing other points of view. And I feel, you know, it's a similar thing with the what was it called, Blue Origin, the 6 all-female space space inverted commas trip. Again, you know, I will admit, as soon as I saw that flight was happening, I kind of switched off, because, you know, it was being done by a really, 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 really rich person, and you knew that the majority of people on board would, you know, paying for a very expensive taxi ride to the upper limits of the atmosphere, kind of thing. You know, and so I switched off, and I didn't really pay any attention. So what I missed in that is that there were actually 2 people on board who are very clever people and good examples for all the girls that are growing up. You know, one was, you know, Amanda Nguyen, astrophysicist, you know, and was on her way to becoming an astronaut. So actually, very clever lady. And, you know, part of her mission, because she was sexually assaulted, is to help spread the message and help change the future for the positive for girls that are coming behind. And so, you know, I was then held accountable for kind of lumping all 6 of them in together, which I hadn't deliberately done, but I had deliberately kind of ignored all of the news about it, because I just wasn't interested, because I knew who was behind doing it, and it didn't sound like it was a mission that would, you know, do lots of great things for research and innovation and, you know, all these other things. But actually there was an element there. So I was really glad to be held accountable and very open to that, because, you know, we can easily go through life thinking our opinion is the right one, and you know, diversity of thought is absolutely brilliant for if we're open to it, for keeping us grounded and for seeing things from other people's points of view. So yeah, I think accountability has definitely been a theme for me lately in a number of ways, which is kind of why I wanted to ask the question, because I think it's something really important to talk about. So yeah, interesting one.
Great question. Oh, we're getting deep today, aren't we? Oh. So my last question, again, not surprisingly, it always makes me laugh when we do. We just need to be really open. So if you're a new listener, you might not fully appreciate, although we do say it in our notes, that Rachel and I come up with our questions for the show completely separately. We never discuss them. They are of our own making, completely separate. So they're a complete surprise. But what happens on more than one occasion is that somehow they seamlessly dovetail completely by accident into a kind of theme. So the accidental theming. And my last question was, obviously there has been a lot of hurt and fear and assumption and judgment and misunderstanding and hatred and just lots of really, I think social media, certainly for me, has been a very challenging and sad place to be. And your point about we are all guilty. We all make assumptions. We all have opinions. We all have all of those things. Some of us have studied, some of us haven't. Some of us we get our information from lots of different sources. Some of them are more reliable than others. But that whole weight of what's going on in the world has weighed heavy on my heart the last couple of weeks. It's been a difficult place to be, and so my question is, how do you balance your being when we have situations that are like this? How do you balance your way of being? Because there is that tendency, isn't there, to I just want to leave social media altogether and go, I'm done with this, which I recognize is a reaction, not a response. So my question is, how do you balance your soul, your body, your way of being? How do you balance your being in the face of what feels like relentless challenge?
Yeah, for me, it's very much about connection. Twofold. It's talking, but it's also listening, and really listening. I've always felt it really important to try and see things from other people's points of view. And when you can have meaningful discussion and understand where someone is coming from, you don't have to agree with them. And no one has the sole and only truth in existence. There's always subtlety and nuance, and people are complicated. So unsurprisingly, all the things that are going on in the world, it's never truly simple. There's lots of complicated things involved to make up any given situation. But the concern is when people aren't willing to listen, and they are so convinced that they have the only right opinion that exists, and it seems to not matter what you say, they're not interested in listening. And that can be quite soul destroying, because at what point do you say, okay, I'm going to step back for my own sanity and not engage, versus the compulsion to try and help and try and put another opinion out there and to stand up for the things that you believe in. But all of that takes a lot of energy. And one thing I've really appreciated recently, there's a particular friend who we've been having kind of background discussions about the things that have been going on in the world. And, we didn't necessarily agree it at the beginning, but we both just knew it was a very safe space to air opinions, and to also be able to say, I'm not actually sure what I think about this. I'm confused. I need more information. And that for me that has been massive in the last few weeks about balancing my way of being in terms of the things that are going on, is being able to talk openly without fear of judgment, without fear of argument. You know, and I wonder, I suspect there are a lot of people out there at the moment that maybe aren't able to have safe conversations. You know, they're just going hell for leather with whatever their opinion happens to be, and sadly I see it on all sides. You know, if we're talking about the Supreme Court ruling, for it as an example, there are various different opinions, and some people on any, I don't kind of want to say that there's only two sides. I think it's more complicated than that even, but people on all sides become judgmental and rude and insulting and all of these sorts of things, and none of that's going to help anyone. So, you know, for me, it's to try and balance how you're you know, to keep yourself centered and to try and maintain some sense of normality in yourself when things are challenging. For me, communication is the biggest thing, but it's finding those spaces where that communication feels safe, because it can be, as you've alluded to, so challenging. You know, all of the things that are going on, there's some awful things going on in the world right now, close to home and further away from home, and I think it would be very easy to feel overwhelmed by it all, and, you know, to feel quite sad at a lot of the things that are happening, to feel disbelief, to feel all sorts of things, you know, and all of it's valid. And for me, it's now more than ever is the time that we need to communicate with each other and maintain connection, however that works for you, kind of thing, is the key for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there, I would add that when you're talking, when you're having those conversations, it's actually really helpful to have conversations with people whose experience is different from yours.
Yes.
So, you know, as white cis women,
Yep.
we don't have the experience, the lived experience that many of our other friends, colleagues have. And so having really listening, it's back to what you said earlier, Rach, listening, really listening to their experience, because it's easy to dismiss, because we don't want to believe that people can be so horrible and so awfully cruel, but actually their lived experience. So listening, really listening to other people's lived experience can only help. And also when you can talk to people who can share that in a measured and calm way, so that, you know, we can have conversations without the need to be proved right. And I think when ego gets in the way of good conversation, then, as you say, nobody wins. It's a lose-lose situation, isn't it? And none of us want to be in a lose-lose situation. So it's about making sure that you have those conversations, that you listen more than you talk, and that if you're, and ask yourself that question, is my need to be right more important than actually listening to somebody else? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with you on that completely. Oh, well, again, folks, let us know what you think, because, you know, some of these things we're talking about are really important topics. So we'd love to know what your thoughts are as well. So through to my final question then, and this is a very light-hearted question to end the show on. So I would like to know, given that we're having this lovely heat wave this week that's led to the lack of jumpers and things that we've already talked about, can you share one or more top tips for food in this hot weather? Food that works well.
in this hot weather?
Well, do you know, as somebody who loves tea, I know that isn't food, but do you know, tea. The reason tea was so popular is in India was because it's actually it's cooling.
Yes.
So it sounds weird, doesn't it? Counterintuitive, hot tea.
Yes.
But it is cooling. I'm a huge fan of salad. And you know, there's things. I think when the weather's warm, you want to do things that are colourful and tasty, and the minimum of effort.
Yes.
So I'm a huge fan of all sorts of. I was last week. I happened to be having lunch with a friend, and she had made the most delicious. It was an orzo, orzo salad, and it was feta cheese and those little green beans and watermelon, and it had pepper. Every mouthful was an absolute joy. So it was really colourful, and the feta cheese and the watermelon and the orzo was just delicious. It was fabulous, really easy to eat. I didn't prepare it. She said it was easy to prepare, but it was great, and you could have a big bowl of it. Don't put the watermelon in until you're just about to eat it, because otherwise it would go slimy. But it was delicious. So I know there are people who don't like pineapple on pizza, and who the thought of mixing sweet fruit and savoury is probably making them turn green at the thought. So I apologise for that if that's you. But I quite like mixing fruit and savoury together. I quite enjoy that. So and of course you can't beat barbecue, can you? You could always tell the sun's out for 10 minutes and everybody's got their barbecues lit. So I love roasting vegetables. Sweet corn on the barbecue is just divine. So there's all sorts of delicious things that you can do on the barbecue. So I think my main joy is just that easy to prepare. All the colours, the great colours, aren't there? And all of this salady things, so you can have all those peppers and tomatoes and strawberries when they're ripened in the sun. All of those. I think that's one of the things that's so wonderful about Italy and other European countries, is that all of those vegetables and fruits and things, when they're ripened in the sunshine, they taste just so delicious, don't they?
Yeah, this is making me really hungry.
I know. Yes, me too. I did have lunch.
Oh dear. Well, the top tip I'm going to share is something that I am now going to experiment with, which is overnight oats for breakfast.
Love overnight oats.
So it's not really something I've done before. I've had it at other people's houses, family when staying over, but never really, I've never done it for myself. So I have bought on the last shopping trip some jumbo oats. I'm told those are the best ones to go for. So I now have jumbo oats in the cupboard, yogurt, fresh fruit, frozen fruit, things like kefir yogurt, because the fermented yogurt is really good for your gut. So that's another brilliant thing to add in. But as a fan of porridge, obviously in this hot weather, we don't really want porridge because it's hot. We don't necessarily want a hot breakfast, but the idea of still getting the goodness of porridge, with some lovely healthy things in it, like fruit and yogurt and things, maybe a bit of honey, that really appeals to me. So I have some jars, I have some jumbo oats, and I'm now on a mission to have a go with overnight oats. So that's my top tip for people. If you want a nice nutritious breakfast that might keep you full for a bit longer but don't want something hot, then overnight oats is my tip. So there you go.
I love overnight. You're singing to the choir here. I love overnight oats. And actually, if you're, although the name obviously overnight, you don't actually have to leave them overnight. You don't have to leave them that long. So actually, I have been known in an emergency to leave them for half an hour.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the same, but make them in the morning, go and have your shower, get dressed, do all that stuff. It takes me quite a long time in the morning to get myself organized. So they've had time to soak it up. But yes, overnight oats are the bee's knees. They're marvelous. I love them. So great tip, Rachel. What a thing to finish on. Great
yes, tip. I know. What a great way to end the show. So let us know if you have a go with any of the things we've mentioned, or if you've got any particular recommendations that you would like to share. So it's been 50 minutes, Jenny. So if you've been listening and got this far, then thank you for staying with us, because it's
we've been ranting today. It's been a long one today, hasn't it?
We've had a lot to say. So if you're still with us, thank you for listening. And we shall very much look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks' time. But until then, take good care of yourselves and remember sun cream. Very important in this hot weather.
Absolutely, sun cream. Take care, everybody. Be inspiring, stay brilliant, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.
Bye for now.
Bye.